When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on a bed. 2 strangers were leaning over me. Who were they? I looked around, but I couldn't understand where I was. I was in a haze, and I felt really weird. Then, they sat me in a car and brought me to some house. It was very scary. But soon, my friend came over and told me a story. I was shocked. It couldn't be true. But let's start from the beginning. Hi, I'm Amelia. Our class was very tight-knit, and I often hung out with my classmates. One day, we decided to go to an amusement park. I didn't really want to go because I was afraid of heights and anything extreme. But I had no other plans, so I decided to join my classmates. Of course, I didn't go on any dangerous rides. While everyone else was riding the roller coaster, I watched from the sidelines. And you know what? Even looking at it was scary. When everyone hovered at the highest point and then suddenly rode down, I couldn't help but scream. The people standing next to me immediately turned around to stare at me. After the roller coaster stopped, my classmates asked me why I had screamed so loudly. It's just that I hate extreme sports and everything to do with them. Oh, if only I'd known what my confession would lead to. I wish I hadn't said anything back then. There was a guy called Frank in our class. He was a real bully and a headache to all the teachers. When he heard my words about extreme sports, he immediately started making fun of me. I acted like it didn't bother me. I thought it didn't matter and he'd forget about it soon enough. Yeah, right. The next day, I walked into the classroom as usual. All of a sudden, something flashed in front of me and fell with a loud crash. I cried out in surprise and squeezed my eyes shut. My classmates burst out laughing. When I opened my eyes, I saw just an ordinary bucket lying on the floor. Frank's laughter rang the loudest. That bully had set me up, and my troubles weren't ending there. During history class, I sat down just like normal, but then I suddenly heard a loud sound. I jumped up, horrified. It turned out Frank had glued a pneumatic horn to my chair. Everyone started laughing at me again. I was furious. No one had ever bullied me like that before. I didn't know what to do. So I asked my best friend Olivia for advice, but she couldn't think of a solution either. My birthday's coming up. We should throw a big party and get your mind off things. A little later, it turned out that Olivia had invited the whole class. She had also decided to celebrate her birthday at a water park. When I found out about it, I immediately refused to come. There were so many extreme slides there. Oh, it was not for me. But Olivia said I could just lie on a sunbed or swim in a shallow pool. And in the end, she managed to convince me. At the beginning of the party, everything was going great. We swam in the pool and sunbathed, but then everyone decided to try the slides. Of course, I was not about to take part in that, but Olivia convinced me to just go with them, just to look. And some of our classmates decided to go on the craziest slide there. The visitors were supposed to get up on the slide, and then a hatch would open under their feet and they would fall. In my opinion, it was quite awful, but I wanted to get a cool photo from the park. So I gave Olivia my phone and I stood on the hatch. I posed, pretending like I was about to go on the slide. The photo would definitely get a lot of likes, I thought. And I was about to leave when Frank suddenly appeared next to me. Before I had a chance to react, he had pressed the start button. The hatch opened and I fell. My scream was probably heard by everyone at the water park. As I was falling towards the pool, I hit my head slightly and I choked on water. I was both scared and angry. I wanted to take revenge on Frank for everything he'd done. As I was getting out of the pool, I got an idea. I would pretend like I'd lost my memory. Frank would be afraid that it was his fault and stop bothering me. My classmates were already crowding around the pool. They immediately started laughing and whistling. I looked at them, confused. Who are you? The laughter stopped instantly, and everyone looked at me, bewildered. There was a pause, and then Frank came up to me, looking tense. Are you okay? I pretended like I felt sick. I sat down on a sunbed, putting my head in my hands, and acted like I was about to throw up. I guess I was a great actress, because everybody believed me. They all got scared and started shouting that I needed to see a doctor. I was mentally rubbing my hands together with glee at the sight of Frank's scared face. He and Olivia brought me to a medical center, and there, a doctor examined me and asked exactly what had happened. I lied to her about hitting my head and then not remembering anything. Well, it seems like you have amnesia. I can't say for sure whether your memory will come back or not, so we may need to run some more tests. She offered to call me an ambulance, but I declined. Then she also said she had a car and could give me a ride home. Thank you, but I'll just call my parents. They'll come pick me up. The doctor shook her head, but didn't insist. She wrote me recommendations and made me promise I would sign up for an examination in the near future. I spent the next few days enjoying life at home. I ordered food delivery, listened to music, and watched my favorite TV series. Then, when I got tired of lazing about, I went to school. I was in a great mood. I was sure that Frank would stop bothering me, but what happened was even better. Frank not only stopped bullying me, he also became very thoughtful. He did everything for me, brought me cakes, helped carry my bag with textbooks, and was constantly asking about how I felt. During a break, Olivia came up to me, looking worried. "How are you feeling? Does your head hurt?" "Not really." Olivia looked at me anxiously and asked plaintively, "Do you at least remember that we're best friends?" I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I had to admit that I'd made everything up just to get back at Frank. Olivia opened her mouth in surprise and stared at me for a while. And then, after processing the news, she was delighted with my idea. "Oh, that is so cool! It serves him right!" Life got better, and I was happy. But one day, Frank messed it all up again. He said that his dad was friends with a cool doctor who even owned a clinic. "I've arranged everything. Today, the doctor will examine and diagnose you, and you'll find out when your memory will return." At first, I thought he was really worried about me, but then I realized that who Frank was really worried about was himself. After all, he was to blame for what had allegedly happened to me. In any case, going to a cool doctor was not in my best interests. If he examined me, everyone would find out that I lied. After talking to Frank, I immediately found Olivia. We tried to come up with an excuse so that I wouldn't have to go anywhere. I ended up lying to Frank about Olivia's dog being sick. I told him that her parents had left, Olivia needed to go to work, and there was no one else who was able to take the pet to the vet. What's more important to you? The health of some dog or your own? And what does that have to do with anything? Olivia's my friend. I have to help her. At first, Frank seemed to agree, but then he said that we would just go to the doctor the next day. And if I wasn't free the next day, we would go in 2 days. He basically said he wouldn't be leaving me alone until he brought me in for a checkup. Ugh, damn it. Why was he so annoying? My perfect plan was failing. I had to think quickly of something, and that's when I had another idea. I was shocked by it myself, but I thought it could definitely work. I decided to pretend I'd fallen in love with Frank. And why not? I had supposedly forgotten about everything, even his bullying. He would definitely be flattered and he would no longer want my memory to come back. And as usual, I told Olivia all about it. She doubted that it was a good idea, but she still supported me anyway. I got down to business the next day. I got up early to put on makeup and do my hair, and when I got to school, I immediately went up to Frank and I started a conversation with him. I looked at him with loving eyes, laughed at all his jokes, basically flirted the entire day. Frank was surprised by my behavior and didn't really know how to react to it. After classes, I suggested that we go for a walk. Frank was even more surprised and hesitated. But I was very persistent, and in the end, he agreed. It could hardly even be called a date. But Frank was so confused that he forgot about the planned visit to the doctor. Everything was going according to my plan. I decided I wouldn't stop here, and I whispered, "You're so cool. You know, I think I'm in love with you." After school, we went for a walk. Frank was shocked by my words, but he felt flattered. We sat in the park for a while, then took our bikes and rode around the city. I pretended to be amazed by Frank, but he actually annoyed me terribly. I didn't like how arrogant and brazen he was, but my main goal was achieved. He forgot all about the doctor's appointment. The next day, I continued to act like a fool in love, but I quickly started to grow tired of lying. Still, I couldn't tell him the truth. Frank would have started bullying me even more to get revenge. I felt exhausted, and I came home in a bad mood. As soon as I walked in, my parents suddenly rushed towards me. They looked worried out of their minds. "Amelia, what happened? We just found out you were injured and lost your memory?" "We got a call from the doctor who examined you at the water park. She's been worried and looking for you this whole time and finally managed to contact us. Why didn't you tell us anything?" I already regretted lying to the doctor. I should have just told her the truth and asked her to play along. But it was too late to think about that now. I decided I would at least tell the truth to my parents. I made it up to teach a guy who was bullying me a lesson. But now everything went out of control and I'm so confused. I'm sorry. I thought I was ready for any reaction, but I really didn't expect for my parents to not believe me. They had always worried way too much. but now they went crazy. Mom immediately called a doctor and made an appointment for me. No one listened to any of my objections. My life turned into a nightmare. My parents dragged me to medical offices and doctors, and they ran all sorts of tests on me, and a few days later, I decided enough was enough. I was sick and tired of both doctors and Frank. I had missed school because of my parents' paranoia, and he had sent me a bunch of messages. He kept asking how I was doing and even sent me dumb kisses. One day, I was sitting in my room and staring blankly out the window. I'd even gotten tired of my favorite TV series and I'd stopped watching it. I was trying to figure out what to do but of course, it was probably the craziest of every idea I've had so far. Without thinking twice, I called Olivia and told her my plan. What if I did it all again? I mean, hit my head and say I got my memory back. Olivia sighed heavily. No offense, Amelia, but I think you're acting like something is wrong with your head. You've gone too far, it's time to stop. Just tell everyone the truth. Anything but that. No one would ever want to be my friend again. I tried to think of how to trick everyone at once, but nothing good came to mind. But then, I got lucky. My classmates had liked the party at the water park so much that they decided to go there again on the weekend. While everyone else was doing water aerobics, dancing by the pool, or drinking on cocktails, I was mentally preparing to go on that slide again. The same one I'd gone on the previous time thanks to Frank. Finally, I plucked up my courage. Olivia tried to talk me out of it, but I didn't want to hear it. I went to the slide and nodded at the start button. Olivia sighed and reluctantly pressed it. It was even scarier than the previous time. I quickly fell and my heart sank. It was a nightmare. I wanted it to end as quickly as possible. But then something went wrong. I lost control of my body and as I was falling into the pool, I suddenly hit my head. Then it was finally over and everything went dark. I opened my eyes and I saw two strangers leaning over me, a man and a woman. I was in a bright room that I didn't recognize. I thought it looked sort of like a hospital ward. The pair looked at me excitedly. Baby, how are you feeling? Amelia, you scared us both to death. Huh? Amelia? Who's that? The woman suddenly started to cry, and the man immediately hugged her. A doctor walked in and said that I had suffered a serious injury. I was then diagnosed with amnesia. It turned out that the man and woman were my parents, but I didn't remember them at all. They brought me home, but I didn't recognize it. Did I really live here? Everything seemed unfamiliar to me and very strange. A few days later, a girl called Olivia came over. She said that we were friends. Olivia told me all about my past life, about my school, friends, and how we always spent time together. One day, she brought a guy called Frank with her. I liked him a lot right away. He was attentive and caring. He also brought me a lot of gifts and sweets all the time. Frank waited until Olivia had left and told me that we used to be a couple. I immediately believed him. After all, I was in love with him. I could feel it. It was like magic. And when Olivia came, I told her everything. But for some reason, my friend averted her eyes. I wouldn't be so happy if I were you. When you get your memory back, you might be in for some bad news. I didn't understand what she was talking about, so I demanded an explanation. Then, Olivia told me everything that you just heard. At first, I didn't believe her. Could I really be such an idiot? Maybe Olivia just likes Frank and she's lying to me, so we'll break up. But on the other hand, what if she's actually telling me the truth? What do you think? Did Olivia make this all up, or did it actually happen? Tell me in the comments down below.